we are back with our new fanfic, which is What If Naruto Was Banished from Konoha with Tsunade Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and please subscribe to the channel. It motivates me to upload more fanfic like these for you all. Now let's start the fanfic. Tsunade Senju, Godime Hokage of Konoha, sat in a chair at the foot of the bed of Naruto Uzumaki. She looked at his sleeping form with sadness in her eyes and thought, I can't believe that those bastards on the council would threaten me like this. Flashback. Tsunade stood in front of the council and asked while releasing some ki, would you please repeat that again? Danzo said, because of the actions of one Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha has left the village and we of the council have decided for the good of the village that you have two choices, one is to have him executed. Now, we all know of your feelings for the boy, so we give you the second option, exile. If he is not out of the village in 10 days, then we will issue orders for him to be executed. Tsunade said, you can't do that. I am the Hokage and I. Danzo said, yes, we know, you do not agree with our decision, which is why we will notify the Fire Lord and he will support our decision. That is all, you have 10 days to make your decision. Good day. As he got up along with the entire council minus the clans and left. Tsunade frowned and looked around at the members who were still left and asked, what about you people? What do you have to say about this order? Hiyashi frowned and said, I am indebted to Uzumaki for changing Neji for the better. I do not support this decision but was outvoted. Inoichi said, actually Hokage-sama, all of the clans were against this, but they outvoted us. We have all been either neutral or partially favorable to the boy. Sum asked, what do you plan to do, Hokage-sama? Tsunade said, I don't know. Hiyashi stood up and said, may I make a request, Hokage-sama? Tsunade turned to look at him and he said, if you do banish Naruto, please send Hinata with him, making everyone wide-eyed. Tsunade asked, why? Hiyashi frowned and said, because this will destroy what confidence she has. Everyone knows of her interest into the boy, and if she reverts any, then the Hyuga Council will force me to put the caged bird seal on her. I do not wish that for either of my daughters, so at least if she was with Naruto then she could be happy, at least until my clan council decides to try to get her back. I may appear to not care for my daughter, but the truth is I only wanted her to find strength and be happy. I ask that if she does leave with him that none of the rest of the clans reveal what I have said. As one parent to another. Tsunade frowned and said, I will consider it. For now I just need time to think. End flashback. Tsunade sighed as she looked at the form of Naruto and thought, what am I going to do? I only came back to this damn village because of him. Becoming angry, with furrowed brows, she continued, if he's not wanted, then neither am I, as she clenched her fist. Jiraiya looked at her as he came in through the window and said, I heard what happened and came back as fast as I could. What do you plan to do? Tsunade said, I have no reason to stay in Konoha if he is not here. You know I only joined because I believed in him. Jiraiya frowned and said, then what? If you leave then Danzo will take control and have Root and Anbu after him before the end of the day. Tsunade frowned for a minute, and then smirked and said, not if the Rokudime Hokage were to keep control, at least until I could get him to safety. Jiraiya said, no way Tsunade. I am not taking that job. Tsunade snorted and said, agree to it and I will give you the one thing you always wanted. Jiraiya frowned and glared at her and said, that's low, Haim. You know I only want that if your heart was in it, not because of some payment. I know you care for him Haim, as much as I do. He is my godson for Kami's sake. Tsunade said, and what have you done for him? You've just taught him 2 jutsu, one of which is his birthright. I talked to him and I read all the reports Sensei had on his education and training. I know how you only started to train him after he had to bribe you with his unique henge. Jiraiya closed his eyes and said, "Fine. I will take the job and give you as much time as I can. What do you plan?" Tsunade's eyes softened and she said, "I have a plan. I need some things from you in 2 days. I plan to leave the village with him then." Jiraiya asked, "Have you told him yet?" Tsunade nods and said, "Yeah, I told him earlier after I checked on his injuries. He's hurt by it." Jiraiya frowned and said, "Tell me what you need so I can get it." Tsunade smiled softly and began to tell him what she needed. When she was done, Jiraiya blinked and said, "Well, that won't be too hard to get those items, and I believe I can get the approval. I will see you in your office in 2 days and I won't tell anyone." As he leapt out the window, Tsunade watched him go and thought, "Thank you, you old pervert." The next day Hinata walked into Tsunade's office with Hiashi and he said, "We have come as summoned, Tsunade-sama." Tsunade made sure the door was closed and put up a privacy jutsu and said, "Now that I am sure no one can listen to us, I will speak. Hinata Hyuga, your sensei and your father have told me how you have an interest in healing." Hinata stuttered, "Yes, Hokage-sama." Tsunade nodded and asked, "What is your opinion of Naruto Uzumaki?" Hinata turned red and Hiashi said, "Go ahead, Hinata, and speak the truth. I hold no judgment in this and I support you." Hinata nodded and stuttered, "He inspires me, Hokage-sama. No matter what happens, he always gets back up and keeps going. He is very brave." And Tsunade interrupted her and said, "All right, let's just hurry this up. I will ask you a question and you will shake your head yes or no, okay?" Hinata nodded and Tsunade asked, "Do you like him?" Hinata nodded and Tsunade asked, "As more than a friend?" Hinata looked at her dad who nodded and she nodded and Tsunade asked, "If you had a chance to be with him, would you take it?" Hinata quickly nodded and Tsunade asked, "Even if you had to leave the village and your clan and family?" Hinata froze as she looked at her father, who said, "This is a decision that you will have to make on your own, Hinata. This is one decision where you will have to live with your choice, so don't worry about what anyone else thinks but yourself." Hinata closed her eyes and said, "Why do you ask me this, Tsunade-sama?" Without a stutter, Tsunade looked at her and said, "What I am about to tell you, you cannot tell anyone or repeat. Am I understood, both of you?" Making Hiashi look curiously, Hinata nodded along with Hiashi and Tsunade said, "I will give you the quick version because I have a lot to do and not a lot of time. The Yondaime could not kill the Kyuubi as you were told, he had to instead seal it into a newborn baby. His son." Making Hiashi eyes wide, Tsunade continued, "By doing that he made it such that when his son dies the Kyuubi will die as well. They are two separate beings but." Hinata said, "But Naruto-kun is seen as the Kyuubi, attacked, glared, hurt, and treated unfairly." Making both Hiashi and Tsunade look at her. Hiashi asked, "How did you know Tsunade is speaking about Naruto?" Hinata frowned and said, "The night he stole the forbidden scroll. I snuck out and followed him." Hiashi frowned and Hinata said, "I heard what Mizuki and Aruka said that night. I finally knew why he was treated the way he is." Tsunade saw the look on Hiashi's face and asked, "And what do you think of him?" Hinata put her fingers together, and said, "I only see him as that much of a hero for it." Tsunade said, "The Council of Konoha, in its infinite wisdom decided that I have two options, to banish Naruto or to have him executed. The clans were against this but they were outnumbered." Hinata looked down at this and Tsunade asked, "Would you like to go with him?" Hinata bit her lip and nods and Tsunade said, "Good, now Hiashi, I am afraid that is all I can say with you here because the rest of our conversation is the details about when they will leave and what is to happen. I request that you please prepare anything you wish for her to take with her and seal it into a scroll for her and bring it to me tonight at midnight. Now if you would please leave and allow me to speak with Hinata privately." Hiashi nods and said as he stopped at the door, No matter what you think of me or what I have done in the past or may have to do in the future, I have always loved you and I was only hard on you because I wanted you to become stronger and find happiness. If being with Naruto gives you that, then you have my blessings for what it's worth. You know I am but one man and I will have to answer to the council and protect your sister. Please be strong and good luck, my daughter. I love you and your mother would be proud. As he walked out the door, Hinata fell to the floor crying after he left and Tsunade got up and went around and hugged her and said, "Shish, it will be okay, Hinata. I promise." After several minutes Hinata calmed down and Tsunade stood up and said, "Now we have much to discuss. You see, we leave tomorrow at 5 a.m. I have two very trusted chunins doing guard duty." Hinata asked. "We?" Tsunade said. "Yes, you see, along with Naruto, both Shizune and I will be going with you. I am taking you both as apprentices. Leave your headband here when you leave today and pack your clothes and anything you might need. I read in Kurenai's report of your team that she taught you the basic of sealing. So, seal everything you wish to bring so we can travel fast. If you wish to see anyone before you leave, you need to do so now, but you can't tell them why you are leaving. Inform them that I have you along with 3 others going on a special C-rank mission that you cannot tell about for security of the client." Hinata asked. "How is Naruto-kun taking this?" With a stutter, Tsunade frowned and said, "You will learn tomorrow. Now please leave and do what you need to and do not seek out Naruto because you won't find him." "Okay." Hinata nodded and left. The next morning at 5 a.m., Tsunade walked to the gates with Shizune and Naruto and saw Hinata already standing there, waiting. Tsunade asked, "Are you ready?" Hinata nodded and Tsunade said, "Good, let's go," as she walked out the gates with the others following. About 2 miles away from Konoha, Naruto said, "This is far enough," as he was covered in smoke and a 5 feet tall toad was standing there where Naruto had been. Hinata asked, "Where is Naruto-kun and what's going on?" Tsunade said, "Relax, Hinata. You see, Naruto is still too injured to move. Even with his healing abilities he wouldn't be able to move without re-injuring himself for another 4 days. This is a toad summon. The toads have taken Naruto to Myoboku's in mountain. Now if you would please grab the toad and he will take you there as well. You need to hurry, though." Hinata looked confused and asked, "What about you?" Tsunade smirked and said, "Don't worry, I will be joining you soon along with Shizune in 10 days. For now take this scroll and begin to do what it tells you until Naruto has healed enough." Hinata took the scroll and did as she was told and grabbed the toad. Soon they were both covered in smoke and soon appeared on a mountain with several giant toad statues. The toad said, "Please wait here," as he jumped away. A few minutes later a small orange toad in a vest appeared and said, "So you are Hinata. I am Gamakichi. I am one of Naruto's favorite summon. Please follow me." Hinata looked around and nods as the toad began to lead her away. Back with Tsunade and Shizune, after Hinata left, both looked at each other and Tsunade said, "Last chance, Shizune, you can turn back now or." Shizune said, "My place is with you, Tsunade-sama." Tsunade said, "Right, then you know the plan, let's go," as both took off leaping through the trees. Hinata looked at the hut Gamakichi lead her to and Gamakichi said, "Bro's in there asleep. Slug lady put him in a medical coma until he heals. If you need anything just ring the bell on the front of the hut, but please do not wander around out of sight of this hut. It is not safe here for outsiders without a guide. Good luck." As he jumped away, Hinata looked at him until he was gone and she stepped into the hut and saw a toad sitting on Naruto's stomach and he looked at her and nodded before he jumped away. Hinata walked over and looked at Naruto and saw he had bandages over his chest. She closed her eyes and activated her bloodline and looked at Naruto. She gasped and thought, "Poor Naruto-kun, did Sasuke do this to you?" As she cancelled her bloodline and sat down, moving the hair away from his face. After about an hour of looking at him sleep, She pulled out the scroll Tsunade had given her and opened it and read. Hinata, if you're reading this then you have already been taken to where Naruto is. Please make sure that he does not move around too much when he wakes up. Now for yourself, I don't know what is there you can use or not, so I have several books that I want you to read while you watch our favorite knucklehead. When he wakes up, have him read them as well. Please help him when he needs it and give him support. Test him on what you both read to make sure he actually knows it. I want at least the book on basic anatomy memorized by you both by the time we meet up. Tsunade. Hinata looked at seal with the kanji for one on it and unsealed it with chakra, and out popped a book labeled Basic Anatomy. She looked at Naruto and then sighed as she opened the book and began to read. Later that afternoon, in Konoha, in the Hokage office there was a knock on the door. Tsunade said, "Come in," as she was looking at some books on her desk. Homura and Koharu both walked into her office and she looked up and glared before looking back at the book she was reading and asked, "What do you want?" With disdain in her voice. Homura said, "We came to see if you have decided what to do about Uzumaki." Tsunade said, "Naruto is still in a coma from the Chidori Sasuke shoved in his chest. I will not make a decision without talking with him about it first." Koharu said, "We had heard he had awoken already and you had talked with him." Tsunade said, "And this from the same people who wish he was dead. Sorry to disappoint, but even with the Kyuubi inside him helping, he is not immortal and still human and requires time to recover from near death. Anyone who attempts to harm him before he is healed enough to either leave or face his execution will result in the death of not only the person who attempted it but their 3 closest blood relatives, or if they are not any relatives then their teammates." Both Koharu and Homura eyes got wide and Homura said, "You can't do that, Tsunade." Tsunade said, "I have already made it official and sent it to the Fire Lord along with a copy of your orders, his medical file about his injuries, the mission he was on, as well as the other members who were with him and their reports, as well as a few other files I found in Sensei's files I thought would be important. You want a fight? Well, this bitch has claws. Now get the hell out of my office or I will send you both to Ibiki for insubordination." Koharu frowned and Homura said, "This isn't over, Tsunade." Before Homaru could say anything, Tsunade had cleared her desk and had slammed her against a bookshelf and said, "Do not threaten me, you old bastard. I am the Hokage and you are my advisors. Do not try my patience." As she let go of Homura and stepped back and said, "Do not bother me until the time limit is up or I will kill you. Now." Both advisors quickly left and after they were gone Tsunade slumped into a chair and was covered in smoke as Jiraiya appeared and thought, "Well, that will buy you some time, Haim. Let's see what else I can do, huh? Perfect." Jiraiya quickly put up a henge again and pressed a seal under the desk and said, "Anbu." 4 Anbu appeared and Tsunade said, "Get me Hatake Kakashi and bring him yourselves. I want him here. Right now." The 4 Anbu quickly left and Tsunade smirked and began to write something down, and about 10 minutes later Kakashi appeared with the 4 Anbu. Kakashi asked, "Don't you think this was a little overboard, Hokage-sama?" Tsunade looked up and glared at him and said, "Anbu, leave us," and they left. She then said, "Now Kakashi, I have been reviewing some files on Team 7 along with your personal files. I do not have a lot of faith in you at the moment from what I have read. According to your own reports, all you have done is trained your team in teamwork and tree climbing while you focused on the Uchiha." Kakashi frowned behind his mask and opened his mouth to say something when Tsunade said, "Don't say a word or I will have you do D-rank missions for a year in one of Guy's jumpsuits." Kakashi shuddered and Tsunade said, "Now, I read your report that there was nothing you could teach them because of their lack of chakra control, and I find it hard to believe that a man who has copied over 1,000 jutsu could not find something that they could learn. So, I am giving you the next 5 days to write down every jutsu you know, hand signs, how to do it and a description of the jutsu." Kakashi said, But, Tsunade slammed her fist into the desk and said, that is not a request. It is an order. I want that in my hands in 5 days or I will have your Sharingan eye removed and destroyed and have you put on trial for treason because purposely sabotaging your Genin team training qualifies as insubordination, especially with us in a war now. Now get started. Time is counting down. Kakashi said, yes Hokage-sama, as he shunshin away. After he was gone Tsunade released the jutsu and Jiraiya was seen again and he thought, well, that should help you, Haim, with his training. With the real Tsunade, Tsunade sighed as she and Shizune sat on a river and Shizune said, where exactly are we going Tsunade-sama? Tsunade said, by now Jiraiya should have sent those reports I fixed up to the Fire Lord as well as a copy of my final orders. Shizune asked, what were they? I know you had me getting several items for you like the Forbidden Scroll, the Sarutobi clan summoning contract, money from the Konoha treasury. Though, why was it such a weird amount? Tsunade smirked and said, Konoha was originally founded by the Senju and the Uchiha clans. As part of the original charter if either clan were to leave the village they would split the village in half between the two clans. What I had you take was exactly half of the Konoha treasury which is legally mine. Shizune frowned and said, all right, I can understand that. But what were your orders? And why the summoning contract? Tsunade said, Asuma had a falling out between him and his father refusing to ever sign the contract. I fear that it will never find its way to Konohamaru's arms. So, I am taking it until he reaches the age at which he will be capable of using it. As for my other orders, I officially took Naruto and Hinata as my apprentice and had both promoted to the rank of Chunin. I have their vests with me. I also made it so that both of them plus both of us are officially cleared of all past, present and future obligation to the village of Konoha. Taunton who was in Shizune's arms squealed and Tsunade said, yeah, you too Taunton, as Tsunade and Shizune laughed. Tsunade smirked and said, I also did something that is going to make it extremely hard for Konoha for the next few months. In 3 days' time Jiraiya who is impersonating me at the moment will send out an order for an official public audit of all the clans and the council financial holdings which require the clans to withdraw all their money from their accounts in the bank and with the Senju money being removed that will pretty much bankrupt the banks and the council as well since they won't receive their orders until the day after by which time they won't be able to get any money making it where they can't pay for any missions. Shizune's eyes got wide and said, that's evil Tsunade-sama, and then smirked, saying, I like it. Tsunade sighed and said, well, I also took the hat. Shizune asked, really, why? Tsunade smirked and said, I like the hat. We should get going now to make sure anyone who's following us will have a hard time tracking us down. The next 3 days went by with Jiraiya impersonating Tsunade. Only D-rank missions were being issued. Today, Tsunade sat in her office and said, Anbu, while using a seal under the desk. The Anbu appeared and Tsunade said, please take these orders to each of the clans of Konoha. To the clan heads themselves. As she handed them several scrolls. The Anbu said, hi. As they quickly left. Hiyashi was in his office when a knock on the door was heard and he said, enter. A branch member with an Anbu walked in and the Anbu said, excuse me Hiyashi-sama, but this is from the Hokage, as he held out a scroll. Hiyashi took it. Once that was done the Anbu left. Hiyashi raised an eyebrow and opened the scroll and read, hello Hiyashi, I am sending this to inform you that because of certain information I have received of theft of funds from our treasury by members of the council. I have decided to do an audit of each of the council members and their families' funds to verify the information I have received. I am sending this notice to each of the clans first because I do not believe that the clans are involved but I have to be fair to everyone as Hokage and investigate you as well seeing that you are a member of the council. This is nothing personal. Now what I would like to request of you is to gather all your family assets from any accounts you have and hold them until this audit is over to ensure there is no laundering, shall we say, of money from one group to another to cover their guilt. By my orders, the council cannot force you to return the funds until the audit is done to every member of the council and then the treasury of the village to verify that the correct amount is there. I am requesting that all involved in this audit use the enclosed ledger to record all transactions of your funds made during the time of the audit. I will have the auditor begin on Monday and the council will be informed tomorrow, so you have a day to gather your funds as do each of the other clans. I thank you for your service in aiding me during this time, and I will make this as painless as possible for those involved. Tsunade Senju, Godime Hokage. P.S. Due to the recent defection of Sasuke Uchiha, all funds, property, and debts of the Uchiha clan go to the closest living relatives in Konoha, namely the Hyuga clan, effective tomorrow. I have the official transfer of ownership orders enclosed below in the seal that contains the ledger. Hiashi blinked and blinked again and thought, what the hell are you up to, Tsunade? This is a very bold move. And said, have the entire branch family gather in the main hall immediately, to the branch member who was waiting to be released. The branch member said, yes, Hiashi-sama, as he turned and left. As Hiashi unsealed the items, he thought, this is going to be interesting. Similar thoughts went through the clan heads. All thought the village as they received their scrolls with similar notes. As this was going on, Tsunade and Shizune were on a boat, and Shizune asked, so now that we are on our way to Mist, what are you planning? Tsunade smirked and said, simple. We get a hotel and get spotted a few times by the local ninjas, and then we henge and leave town on another boat to our next destination. Shizune said, thus making anyone who follows us having a harder time to follow our trail. So how many of these little diversions are we making? Tsunade said, we already did one in Wave and we'll have one in Mist late today, and then we will leave 2 more before we meet Naruto and Hinata, one in Snow Country and one in Tea Country before we head to our real destination. Shizune asked, which is? Tsunade smirked and said, it's a surprise. Just trust me, it will be worth it. Shizune frowned and said, tell me we're not going to be gambling. Tsunade said, nope. Not right now at least. This is too important to gamble on. Shizune blinked and blinked again as she put her hands together and said, Kai. And tried it again and again until Tsunade slapped her upside the head. Shizune looked sheepish and said, sorry. It's just that you not wanting to gamble is shocking. Tsunade sighed and said, don't rub it in. As she closed her eyes and squeezed Tonton, who squealed happily. When Naruto awoke, he looked around and saw a weird-looking hut that he had never seen before, and he saw Hinata sleeping on a bed across from him, and he thought, where am I? He then noticed a weight on his stomach, and he looked down and saw a toad with a stick sitting on his stomach, and he asked, who are you? The toad looked at Naruto and said, I am Fukusaku, but you can call me Pa. My wife Shinma, who you can call Ma, and I were the assistants to the Elder Toad before his passing, and we are now the Elder Toads. You can think of me as the Fire Lord and Gambunta as the Hokage, if it makes it easier to understand. Naruto nodded and asked, okay, so why are you here? And where are the 3 of us right now? Pa said, Myoboku's Mountain or Toad Mountain. What do you remember? Naruto frowned and thought. Flashback. Naruto slowly awoke and saw a white hospital room. He looked over to see Tsunade, who was removing her hand from his head, and he asked, what happened? Tsunade said, what do you remember? Naruto thought and said, I remember Sasuke and I fighting at some valley, and he, as his eyes went wide, he looked down to see his chest was heavily bandaged. Tsunade said, if you were anyone else, you would have died. Luckily Kakashi found you and was able to bring you back, and I was able to save you, with sadness in her voice. Naruto looked at her and saw she had been crying. He asked, kindly, what's wrong? You said I am okay, so why are you sad? Tsunade frowned and said, the council is blaming you for Sasuke's defection. They are forcing me to either have you banished or executed. Naruto closed his eyes and thought, why would the council? Kyuubi, it has to be Kyuubi. Why, in the nine hells, can't they see me and that bastard are two different beings altogether? As he looked at Tsunade. With a grim face, he asked, so when will I die? Tsunade said, you're not. I have some things to take care of, but you are not going to die. Just rest for now and leave things to me, okay? I will protect you, Otudo-chan. Before Naruto could say anything, Tsunade placed her hand on his head, and he fell back to sleep. End flashback. Naruto frowned and said, I was either going to be banished or executed, and Tsunade said she would not let me die. Pa said, Tsunade kept her word and protected you by sending you here to finish healing. Then you will meet up with her and someone named Shizune later. Naruto looked confused and asked, huh? Pa smiled and said, don't worry about it. There is a scroll there for you to read since you can't walk for another 2 days without re-injuring yourself, as he pointed toward a scroll and hopped off. Naruto asked, wait, what about Hinata? Pa looked back and said, you will have to ask her yourself. If you need anything, have the girl ring the bell and someone will come. There is a bathroom behind the door to the left there, but there is no shower, sorry. We hardly ever have humans here, as he hoped away. Naruto frowned as he picked up the scroll sitting on a book and he read it and thought, so Hinata is here to help keep an eye on me, huh? Hinata moaned as she rolled over and opened her eyes and saw Naruto sitting up holding a scroll, and she quickly sat up and said, Naruto-kun. Naruto said, hey Hinata, what's up? I mean, why did Tsunade-bachan send you to keep an eye on me? Hinata looked around and put her fingers together and said with stutter, well, she asked. I accepted. Naruto looked confused and asked, but why you? Hinata blushed and asked in a stutter, can we talk about that later? Tsunade-sama wants us to study while we are here, as she looked down. Naruto frowned and said, I guess you're right, but I don't see why I need to read this. Hinata said, I am sure Tsunade-sama has her reasons, Naruto-kun, in a stutter. Naruto nods and said, why not? I don't have anything else I can do right now anyways. Do you want to read this? Hinata blushed and said, I already did. I finished it while you were SSL sleeping. I am starting the NXXT book already. Why? As she showed the book that was beside her, when she fell asleep reading. Naruto blinked and looked at the book that was under the scroll and asked, how long have we been here? Because this book is huge. Hinata said, 3 days. Naruto said, 3 days and you've been here that whole time? Hinata could only nod, and Naruto thought, why would Hinata agree to watch me while I was asleep for that long? As he glanced at Hinata, who was read and reading a book. Naruto sighed and he opened the book and began to read. The next day in Konoha, Tsunade summoned her Anbu again, and when they appeared, said, please take this official orders to the council and tell them it's non-negotiable, and failure to do so shall result in immediate 10 years of prison for treason. Inside the council chambers a few minutes later, the Anbu appeared and Homura asked, why are you here, Anbu? One said, Hokage-sama sent this here and said to tell you that it is non-negotiable and failure to do so shall result in immediate 10 years of prison for treason, as he handed the scroll to Homaru before leaving with his squad. Homura took the scroll and opened it and began to read, and his eyes went wide. Danzo asked, what does the princess say? Homura said, she claims to have received reports of theft of village funds by members of the council and has ordered an audit of all council members and their families. Danzo said, she can't do that. Hiyashi smirked along with the other clan heads and he said, actually she can, and my clan has claimed all of our assets already for the audit as per her orders. Danzo frowned and saw the other clans nod and thought, what are you up to, Tsunade? Hiyashi saw the frown and said, you know, the funny thing is when my clan claimed all our assets, it seemed a huge chunk was missing. So, I have to agree and support this claim that someone is taking funds from the village funds. Koharu asked, what do you mean when you talk about your clan and the village funds? They are two separate accounts. Hiyashi smirked and said, actually, when I took this letter of authorization Tsunade gave me, the bank manager informed me that Tsunade took what belonged to the Senju clan for her family audit as well, and when I claimed the Uchiha clan funds there was a huge chunk missing. A civilian asked, wait, what right do you have to the Uchiha funds? Hiyashi pulled out a scroll and read, as per order of the Godime Hokage of Konoha, with the defection of the last Uchiha, all assets that belong to the Uchiha clan including money, debt, lands, and property hereby go to their closest living relatives, the Hyuga clan. Several people frowned at this and Homura said, she does not have the authorization to do that. Hiyashi pulled out another scroll and said, according to the village charter, in the event of the destruction of a family no longer residing in Konoha by death, becoming a missing nin, or going missing, all their assets will transfer to the closest living relative, and since the Uchiha clan was once part of the Hyuga clan, that makes my clan the closest living relative. Several people frowned at this and Homura said, that still does not explain why you are messing with the village funds. Several people looked at Hiyashi and he said, thank you for asking. You see, it was pointed out to me that because of the village charter, the village funds are divided evenly between the Uchiha clan and the Senju clan due to the fact both clans were the founding clans of Konoha, and set the account up with their own funds. Danzo frowned at this and thought, this is not good. If the Hyuga clan and Tsunade has all the village funds and the clans accounts, then, as his eyes went wide as he realized something and said, very clever, Tsunade, drawing everyone's attention. Koharu asked, what are you going on about, Danzo? Danzo said, Tsunade has effectively shut the village down by doing this. If the village funds are now in the control of the Hyuga and Senju clans, we can't afford to pay for any missions, thus making the situation unstable, as we can't send anyone on any mission until the funds are returned. I say we should overrule her on this matter, so that we can continue to run the village. Hiyashi said, my clan refuses to return the funds until the missing funds are found. There is over 200 million missing from the village funds, and neither the council nor the Hokage can tell a clan what to do. Unless, of course, you wish to have a civil war in the village, finished Hiyashi. Homura said, then how are we to afford to pay for missions? Hiyashi said, that is not my problem. The audit begins on Monday, so I would say you all should be more worried about getting your assets together, because I know for a fact that all three banks in the village claimed that nearly all the funds in the bank were now gone since each of the clans have collected our assets. Danzo thought, clever move, Tsunade. First, the Fire Lord, who should have received your message by now, will be here in a few days. And now, the bank's cutting off our funding. Does she know of my root program? While Danzo was thinking, he had missed the gasp of several civilian members, who quickly left. Hiyashi thought, I see what you have planned now, Tsunade. You knew that when you gave me the Uchiha assets that I would have no choice but to inquire as to why the Uchiha part of the village accounts was less than it should have been, especially when you took exactly half, according to the ledger, that should have been there. I wonder how Hinata and Naruto are. With that, Hiyashi left the room. The next day, Kakashi appeared in the Hokage office and saw Jiraiya sitting in Tsunade's desk. He asked, where is Tsunade-sama? Jiraiya said, Kakashi, I take it that you have listed down all the jutsu you know, as Tsunade had asked. Kakashi frowned behind his mask and said, yes, Jiraiya-sama, but how do you know about it? Jiraiya said, Tsunade mentioned it when she went to check on Naruto. She said that you would drop by sometime today. With the recent events between her and the council, she asked me to watch her office while she was away to ensure no one broke in and took something. She also told me to take a look at the list and compare the chakra and control level both Sakura and Naruto displayed at the time I took over his training to see if you were telling the truth or not. Kakashi sighed and said, then I suppose I should hand this in to you then. As he pulled out 5 scrolls each labeled under different elements. Jiraiya nodded and took them. He said, well, you may go while I review this, and don't worry. Unless there are several blatant deceptions that I can see you were lying, I will support you. After all, I am a reasonable man and you are my #1 fan. And, I am not emotional like Tsunade can be. You are dismissed. Kakashi said, thank you Jiraiya-sama, as he left. The smile on Jiraiya's face fell, and he thought, well, that movie about the clown and the flying rodent man I saw in my travels was good. You are my #1 guy and pow, kill the bastard. Now let's see what we got. Kakashi, I am so going to make your life hell. Jiraiya looked around and bit his thumb and quickly went through hand signs and said, Kuchio's no jutsu. As he slammed his hand down and an orange toad appeared who said, yo. Jiraiya said, Gamakichi, listen a moment. I need you to see to it that Naruto gives these to Tsunade when they meet up, okay? It's important. Gamakichi nods and grabs the scrolls and disappears, and Jiraiya sighed as he slumped into the chair. He said, now it's time for Tsunade to make her grand disappearance, with a smile, which vanished as he pulled out a scroll and henged into Tsunade and pressed the seal under the desk and said, Anbu. When the Anbu appeared, Tsunade said, please take this to the council in exactly 1 hour. Dismissed. As she handed a scroll to the Anbu and they left. After they were gone, she quickly pulled out some tags Jiraiya had been working on while he was there in the office and put them on the walls, windows, and as she closed the door as she walked out she placed several on the door and shunshin away and dropped the hinge, and Jiraiya thought, smirking, now nobody can enter the office until I am named Hokage. He then headed toward the hot springs with a little giggle. Tsunade was on a boat heading towards Snow Country. She thought, why do I feel like punching Jiraiya right now? Shizune asked, are you alright Tsunade-sama? Tsunade sighed, shook her head, and said, must be my nerves or something. It won't be long until we reach Snow Country. Then, I can send word to Princess Koyuki Kazuhana about what happened to Naruto and our little escape. Shizune asked, do you believe she will take it as Tazuna did? Tsunade thought, remembering Tazuna's reaction. Flashback. Tsunade and Shizune after leaving Konoha headed toward Wave Country. When they got there both women blinked. Tsunade said, with dinner plate eyes, what the hell, the brats got the bridge named after him. Shizune said, I had no idea, nobody ever told us about this. Tsunade said, with half-lidded eyes, look, as she pointed to a plaque and she walked over and read. The Great Naruto Bridge, named after the boy who became a hero by freeing a nation, restoring our faith and teaching us the value of true strength. May the legend of this bridge shine as brightly as the legend of our hero. Dedicated to Naruto Uzumaki and the Konoha nins who came with him in our darkest hour. Tsunade blinked and said, oh, we have got to hear about this. I read Kakashi's report over this mission. How Sasuke and Sakura were prime examples of teamwork and how Naruto's use of Kage Bunshin sped up the bridge building. But I never heard anything about this. I thought the people here might be sympathetic to Naruto, but this may be more than I could ever imagine. Let's see if we can find this Tazuna and hear his version, as she crossed the bridge with Shizune and Tonton. About an hour later, after getting directions, they came upon Tazuna's house. Tsunade knocked on the door. A few moments later, a black-haired girl about the same age as Naruto opened the door and her eyes got wide a moment and tried to hide her response, but both Tsunade and Shizune caught it and the girl said, yes, can I help you? Tsunade said, I am looking for Tazuna, the bridge builder. The girl said, oh, he's out at the moment but will be back in a few hours. May I ask what you wish to see him about? Tsunade said, it's about Naruto Uzumaki. The girl's eyes widened and said, Naruto-kun, how is he? Tsunade narrowed her eyes and said, so, you know Naruto-kun, huh? What's your name? A voice from behind the girl asked. Haku, who is at the door? Tsunade looked and saw a black-haired woman, who said, "Ah, guests, how can I help you ladies?" Tsunade said, "My name is Tsunade and this is Shizune. We were looking for Tazuna so we could inform him about Naruto." Haku bit her lip and said, "Tsunade here is a world-famous medical ninja, Tsunami-san." Tsunade said, "Well, until recently I was the Godime Hokage of Konoha." Tsunami said, "Really? So what about Naruto? My little son Inari looks up to Naruto like a big brother and Haku here is." Haku interrupted her and said, "Just someone whose life was changed by him." Tsunade said, "I see, do you mind if we come in and sit down? We have not really had a chance to rest in a few days since we left Konoha." Tsunami said, "Oh, of course. Please come in, sorry for my manners. We don't have many visitors anymore since Dad took over as the leader of the Land of Waves." Tsunade walked in with Shizune who was holding Taunton and sat down on the couch and Haku sat across from them in a chair while Tsunami to another chair and asked, "So what is Naruto up to?" Tsunade frowned and said, "Well, the Council of Konoha, after the recent defection of Uchiha Sasuke, at which time Naruto was injured, has decided to blame Naruto for Sasuke's defection, which is a lie and." Haku said, "They still blame him for the Kyuubi and wanted to get rid of him, right?" Making both Tsunade and Shizune look at her. Shizune asked, "How do you know about that?" Tsunami sighed and said, "That is something you would have to ask Naruto about yourselves, I am afraid to say. So, now that we know why he's actually being punished, what is his punishment?" As she looked at Tsunade and Shizune. Tsunade looked at Shizune and sighed and said, "The council gave me an ultimatum. I either had to have him banished in 10 days or they would have him executed. Because of the fact I only became Hokage because of him, I have defected with my assistant Shizune here along with one other." Haku asked, "Where is he at?" Tsunade said, "He's somewhere safe because he's still injured from his fight with Sasuke." Haku asked, "What could cause that kind of Chidori?" Tsunade narrowed her eyes and said, "You seem to have me at a disadvantage. How were you able to know what jutsu was used on him?" Haku bit her lip and reached the bottom of her shirt and slowly pulled it up and both women's eyes widened and Haku said as she pulled it back down, "During the mission here Naruto-kun and I met and became friends even though I was the enemy. I was disguised as a hunter nin and was the tool of Zabuza-sama. We met in battle and I had defeated the Uchiha. Naruto-kun thought I had killed him and the Kyuubi's chakra leaked out. He attacked me covered with Kyuubi chakra and it had entered my body from the punches then he stopped when my mask broke. Then, he realized who I was and recovered. At that exact moment, Kakashi went to kill Zabuza-sama and I took the hit for him. Somehow, the Kyuubi's chakra, and my bloodline sealed the wound with ice and it started doing something to my skin that turned it into that blue scar you just saw." Tsunade frowned and said, "May I?" as she motioned toward the scar. Haku frowns and nods and Tsunade moved over and did some hand signs in her hand glows and she scanned the scar and after several minutes she said, strange. It appears to be exactly what Kyuubi did to help heal Naruto. Are you sure the Kyuubi chakra was in you from the fight?" Haku said, "Yeah, my chakra control has always been good and I could detect foreign chakra from genjutsu. It was red, and it burns. Naruto was the only one who knew I was still alive at the end of the battle because his team made him take care of mine and Zabuza-sama's body after they left. He took me to a small cave he found and stayed with me until I was nearly healed and his team had to leave. He talked to Tazuna and his family privately and asked could they watch me for him and they agreed. I have been here ever since." Shizune asked as she looked at Haku, "What exactly were you and Naruto?" Haku narrowed her eyes and said, "Friends." Shizune said, "Alright, fine. I was just curious because, I mean, if he told you about Kyuubi he must trust you a lot. Tsunade sighed as she looked at the clock and said, we need to leave soon, Shizune, if we are going to throw the ninjas off the trail. A male voice said, just be sure that you keep that boy safe, and, if you need anything from us, you got it. And all the woman looked and saw Tazuna sitting at the window to the house and Tsunade asked, who are you? Tazuna came in through the door and said, the name's Tazuna and I am the newly elected leader of Wave Country after our Wave Lord decided to quit after his failure over Gato and his cowardliness to do anything about it. I got reports of a pair of ladies looking for me and where I live so I came to see what was up. I have been here long enough to hear about what the council did. I will tell you this now. Wave Country will break our trade alliance with Konoha for doing this to our hero. Tsunade said, well, I am glad to hear that because I have taken Naruto as my apprentice and will be teaching him everything I can to make Konoha regret everything they ever done to him. Tazuna said, then we are in an agreement. If you need anything for him, don't be afraid to send word. My people are eternally grateful to him. Tsunade smiled and said, I'm glad someone sees him as a hero. I hate to say this but we are leading several false leads as to where we are and if we are going to meet up with him when we are supposed to we must leave. Tazuna said, of course. Take care of him for us. Tsunami said, please tell Naruto that Inari wants to see him. Haku said, tell Naruto-kun, it's snowing now but springs will come soon. He will know what it means. As she turned and walked up the stairs. After she was gone Tsunami said, please forgive Haku. Her and Naruto have some sort of bond and he is a very touchy subject for her. Even I don't know all the details. Tsunade thought, what haven't you told me, Naruto? And said, it's alright, he's a touchy subject for us as well. It was a pleasure to meet you all and when we can we will see you all. Come on Shizune, let's go catch a boat to Water Country. End flashback. Shizune saw Tsunade in thought and pulled out a scroll and wrote something. Tsunade blinked and read, so how long are we going to let her follow us before we do something about it? Tsunade said, you know, I don't know Shizune. I wonder about that myself. For now I say we just sit and wait until the right time to find out. Don't want to piss off a possible ally or make any new enemies. With Naruto and Hinata, Naruto growled as he threw the book across the hut and said, I can't take it any longer. My head hurts from trying to remember the bones, muscles and pressure points. Hinata sighed as she got up and picked the book up and walked over and sat down on the side of the bed Naruto was in and said with only a light stutter, Naruto-kun, I know this is hard to handle, but just think, it might come in handy in the future. Also, Tsunade-sama wouldn't have us reading this without reason. Naruto closed his eyes and began to rub his temples when he felt Hinata hands over his and he opened his eyes and she said, just close your eyes and let me show you something I learned reading the next book, with a blush on her face. Naruto did and Hinata rubbed his temples while using chakra to massage them and Naruto said as the pain started to go away, you know Hinata, you're not stuttering as much and you don't faint when near me anymore. Why is that? Hinata blushed redder and said, I don't know. Naruto said, you're lying. And Hinata asked, what makes you think that? As she stopped moving her fingers. Naruto put his hand over hers and said, I could feel your heartbeat when you were rubbing my temples and when you spoke before it was steady but when you said you didn't know it went faster. I read that the heart beats faster when you lie from the stress. If you don't want to tell me then say so but please don't lie to me. As he moved her hands away. Hinata looked down and pushed her fingers together and Naruto frowned and looked away and Hinata thought, oh no, Naruto-kun's getting mad at me, but if I tell him the truth then he. Naruto sighed as he laid back on the bed and turned away from Hinata and she wanted to start crying and said, I'm nervous about what? You would think of me if I told you the truth. Naruto turned and looked at her and asked, why? Hinata looked down and bit her lip, and Naruto looked at her and asked, "Why are you nervous about what I think? Why are you really here? I know that I am not being told everything. Why did you leave your family to be here with me?" Hinata opened her mouth when a female voice said, "I swear, you're as dense as your father was," as Naruto looked over and saw another small frog. Naruto blinked and asked, "Come again." The frog jumped over and sat down on Hinata's lap and said, "I just said you are just as dense as your father was. You can't tell a girl likes you unless she walks up to you and beats it into your head." Naruto blinked and blinked again and thought, "A girl likes me, does she mean Hinata likes me? Is that why she always faints?" And, as his eyes slowly widened and Hinata got redder and redder the more he looked at her, he asked, "Is this true, Hinata? Do you like me?" Hinata swallowed and closed her eyes and nods, and Naruto looked confused and asked, "Why?" Before she could say anything, something clicked in Naruto's head, and his head swiveled to look at the frog. "Wait, what? You know who my father was?" he asked, as he looked at the frog. The frog said, "Took you long enough. Yes, I know who your father was. He was the one who sealed the fox in you." Naruto's mind froze as he felt his entire world crash and thought, "Oh god, Hinata's going to freak hearing about the Kyuubi and hate me like everyone else, and does that mean my dad was the Yondaime?" As he closed his eyes and waited for Hinata to freak out while thinking the last part, Hinata just sat there, and after several minutes Naruto slowly opened his eyes and saw Hinata looking at him, and he asked, "Why are you not freaking out?" The frog stuck out her tongue and hit Naruto between the eyes and said, "Damn, why did you have to be so stupid? Let me spell it out for you. She already knew about the fox and she still likes you. She left her home to be with you. So wake up and tell the girl if you like her as well." Naruto swallowed as he saw Hinata looking down with her eyes closed, and he thought, "Why is she acting like she wants to cry? Does she really like me that much? Do I like her?" And he swallowed and said, "Hinata, if you like me, please look at me." Hinata looked up slowly and looked at him, and Naruto nods and said, "Alright, since you say you like me, would you give me some time to figure out what I feel for you?" Hinata glanced down and Naruto said, "It's not that I don't like you, 'cause I do. It's just I don't know if it's just friends or more. I never really thought about you and me since we never really got to know each other." Hinata closed her eyes and Naruto asked, "But if you're willing to be patient with me and help me to understand what I feel, then how about we get to know each other better and take it one day at a time? That way you can see if you like me as more than a friend, and I can see if I like you more than a friend, and if we both do, then we can go from there. Are you okay with that?" Hinata bit her lip and looked at him and nodded, and Naruto, who said, "Good, then how about you help me a little bit with his book? And then, we can talk a little bit." Hinata looked at the frog on her lap and Naruto said, "Oh yeah, I forgot you were here," making both the frog and Hinata to sweat drop, and the frog used her tongue to slap him again, and the frog said, "I am Ma. I came to tell you that Jiraiya has sent several scrolls for you to give to Tsunade when you meet with her, so when you leave make sure you have them. Now if you will excuse me, I have dinner to cook." As she hopped away, Naruto's sweat dropped and said, "Why do women always hit me?" Making Hinata giggle and Naruto to smile a small smile. The next day, Naruto smiled as he woke up, and he was finally released from his bed by both Hinata and the elder toads who came by earlier. He walked outside and began to stretch as Hinata walked out behind him, and he said, "You know, by the time we fell asleep last night your stutter was nearly gone. I never knew you were a closet prankster." Hinata giggled and said softly after taking a calming breath, "Yes, I learned it from watching you put a red shirt in with all the whites of my clan's laundry, and it dyed them all shades of red and pink. Father nearly had a heart attack." "Why?" asked Naruto. "Because he had to wear pink underwear to a council meeting." Naruto laughed at that thought, and Hinata saw Ma and Pa heading toward them. Naruto turned and saw them and asked, "What's up?" Pa said as he hopped in front of Naruto. As a toad summoner you have responsibilities that you must live up to. One of them is learning the sage arts, which you are not ready for yet. But another is learning our fighting styles. For the rest of the time you are here, I will begin to teach you our taijutsu style, while Ma here will take Hinata elsewhere because she has some things that she must learn. Naruto blinked and looked at Hinata who seemed confused and he asked, "What things?" Ma said, "Hinata, by birthright you and us have a history together with another summons. Her mother had a contract with the Falcons and when they learned that she was here their leader has asked that she be brought before them to be tested to be their ally as we are yours." Naruto frowns a little and said, "It's alright, Hinata, just be yourself and don't get scared. It may sound scary but I am sure someone as strong as you can do it. Just believe in yourself." "I do." Faster than you could say snap. Hinata head bounced up and looked at Naruto with shock and she asked in a stutter, "Do you mean it?" Naruto said, "Yes, and don't stutter, it's cute and all, but when you talk normal it makes you look lovelier." Hinata blushed red and said, "Hi," as she turned and started to walk away and Ma said, "This way." Walking another way and Hinata turned red with embarrassment and began to follow her and after they were gone Pa said, "You have a way with words, kid." Naruto said, "And you need to explain to me why I was never told my father was the Yondaime," as he looked down at the elder toad. Pa said, "Gambunta was your father's summon partner like Gamakichi is yours. He honored your father's request for you not to know until you were old enough to defend yourself from his enemies and asked all his children to follow the same rule but Ma and I don't have such belief. We feel you should know and that's why we told you. Now follow me." As he hopped away with Naruto following him. They soon came to a clearing with many peaks and Pa said, "Now, I have seen and heard of your use of Kage Bunshin and I ask you truthfully, did you know that whatever they learned goes back to the original when they are destroyed?" Naruto blinked and shook his head no and Pa said, "Well they do. So, here is what we are going to do. I have 3 scrolls here with our taijutsu written in them. I want you to create 50 clones and have them each perform 1 kata each but different ones. While they are doing that you will use chakra to run up and down those spikes over there while I correct the clones on their kata until they do it right at which time I will destroy them and the memory will go back to you. When they do I want you to come back and demonstrate the kata. If you do it right I will let you return to working on your chakra control. If you don't I will beat you in the head with my cane until you get it right. Once you have all 50 kata memorized we will then begin to spar. Now get to work." Naruto put his hands together and said, "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu." And 100 clones appeared and Pa said, "Your control is off but it was expected. Very well. 50 of you work on chakra control with the original while 50 of you do as you've been told. Now get to work before I beat you all." Each of them looked around and Pa jumped up and smacked the real Naruto in the head with his cane and he screamed, "Oh www." As he rubbed his face and Pa said, "You want some, come get some." Each of the clones began to get to work along with the original quickly and Pa smirks and thought, works every time. With Hinata and Ma, Hinata was following Ma and asked, "Why did you tell him I liked him?" Ma glanced back at her and said, "You were distracting not only yourself but him. If you and him are to endure what is to come then you must both be focused. It is better to tell him now and get it out of the way instead of later." Hinata after a few minutes asked, "How did the Falcons know I was here?" Ma said nothing as she stopped and looked up and said, "Hello Talon." Hinata looked up and saw a 6 feet tall falcon who was looking at her and Talon said, "I see you have brought her as I requested. Good. Now leave us before I eat you." Ma turned and left and Hinata looked scared a moment and Talon looked at her and said, "You have nothing to fear of me, Lady Hinata. I am Talon, I was your mother's summon partner before her death." Hinata calmed her nerves and remembered what Naruto said and she said, "It is an honor to meet you." Talon said, It is good to see that you have lost your stutter mostly. I guess the toads are good for something after all. Hinata blinked and bit her lip and asked, "Why do you talk about the toads as if they were?" Talon said, "Dinner. Naturally, that is what they are to me and my kind. However, over the years they have earned my people's respect enough where we will only eat them if they are our enemies in battle or they disrespect us. We both have a common enemy in the snake who eats our eggs before our young can be born. Now you asked how we knew you were here. The falcons are the wing lords of the skies. All other birds are our subjects. They follow our orders and we help to protect them from our natural enemies. We have had them watch you since your birth and they have reported back to me." Hinata thought, "Must mean snakes and others like them." And she said, "I see. So what is it you wish of me?" Talon said, "I wish to offer you my family summoning. Not my people but my family." Hinata blinked and said, "I do not understand." Talon said, "I am not the lord of all falcon summons. I am but one of many falcons. I wish to make myself and my children a personal summon to you where you can summon us, but the strongest falcon you will be able to summon will be me." Hinata thought and asked, "Why me?" Talon said, "It was a request from your mother that you receive the honor. Not your sister or anyone else, but you." Hinata thought a moment and said, "I would like that." Talon said, "Not yet. You must prove yourself to me with a test. You must show me that you can achieve a task set before you with your own hands. I will take you to a river nearby not tainted by the toads where there are many fish. You must use your bare hands, not the gentle fist of the Hyuga clan or weapons of a ninja but your bare hands and catch me 50 fish and keep them all alive and fresh and bring them before me. If you can provide for me and my family then you will earn our respect and our contract. Do you agree?" Hinata thought a moment and asked, "Does this mean I will never sign another contract should I be honored to receive it?" Talon eyed her and said, "Very wise of you to ask. No, this will be a personal summons to you, however you may not sign the contract with our enemies such as the snake. Doing so will result in the lose of our contract. If you wish should you ever be offered another contract summon me and I will tell you if we honor them or not. Now are you ready for the challenge?" Hinata nodded and Talon turned and said, "Climb on my back and use chakra to hold on." Hinata slowly climbed onto his back and when Talon felt her chakra holding on to him he took flight. When they landed in a clearing with a stream in it Hinata got off and was a little dizzy. Talon said, "At least you didn't puke. Now there's the stream and remember, 50 fish, alive with your bare hands." Hinata nods and slowly walks toward the river and looked at the water and saw a few fish and thought, "How am I going to do this? Maybe." As she walked around the clearing and saw a few vines. She ran up the tree and grabbed the vines and did this over and over until she had about 20 vines and she quickly began to tie them together making a huge net. After she finished making a net she looked at it and thought, even if I use this net then the fish might still get out. I guess I have no choice but to use my fish netting that's under my shirt. As she took her shirt off and took the netting off and got back dressed but cut the netting and tied it to the net she made. After she was done she walked to the river and slowly stepped inside and she waited until a fish came close by and she tried to quickly snatch it but the fish was too fast and swam away. She frowned and stood still and waited about 10 minutes for another fish to come by and this time she went slow and was able to slip both her hands under its belly before she grabbed it and slipped it into her net that was tied to her side. Over the next 3 hours she did this over and over again until she climbed out of the water and said, "There. 50 of them." Talon looked at them and quickly ate them and said, "Very good. Remember to have a fish with you as our payment, when you summon any of us. Now take the scroll there on my foot and sign your name with blood and place your handprint on it." Hinata did as she was told and after being told the hand signs Talon said, "Good, now let's take you back to those toads and continue whatever it is that big-breasted woman has you doing." Hinata giggled as she heard this and climbed on before they flew back. When she got there, Talon flew away. Ma came and said, "Follow me. The idiot needs your help again." When Hinata followed her back to the little hut she was sharing with Naruto, she screamed, "Naruto-kun," as she saw all the whelps on his body but mostly on his head. He smiled and said, "Ooh, pretty. I see an angel," as he passed out after spinning around his feet. Hinata blushed and Ma sighed and said, "Pa too rough on his training," as she hoped away. In Konoha, Danzo frowned as he stood outside of the Hokage office and thought, "What are you up to, Tsunade? You have sealed the Hokage office as well as the hospital room to the Nine-Tails child. Why?" He looked around as he saw several people look at the door before leaving and thought, "What are you playing at, Tsunade? Shutting down the village like this makes no sense, unless," as his eyes got wide. He walked over to Shizune's desk and pulled out a drawer and thought, "You're trying to hide the boy. Or have you already had him leave the village and stalling us by distracting us away, giving him a head start?" As he closed the empty drawer and left. A little later he was in his office and he said, "Root." And 4 Root members appeared. He said, "I want all Root operatives to search the village for Tsunade Senju and Naruto Uzumaki. I know they say he is still in the hospital room, but I believe he is no longer there. Go." And the 4 said, "Hi," and left. Danzo got up and opened his filing cabinet and pulled out a folder and sat down to read it. Thinking, it appears that the boy has allies in Wave, Snow, T, and Suna. Wave and Suna won't be a problem for my men, but Snow and T country will be, because they will have to take a ship, and as it stands right now, I can't spend any money or risk compromising my operations." Jiraiya was giggling at the hot springs when he tensed a moment and saw a shinobi land on the roof of the hot spring and look around and thought, that's a Root ninja. I recognize the way he dresses. It's too strict. Have you started to catch on, Danzo? As he looked back into the hole and wrote down what he saw on a notepad. With Tsunade and Shizune, Tsunade smiled as she stretched in the VIP room of the ship they were on, leaving Spring Country, and said, "Well, I have to say, the kids got away with women, huh?" Shizune shook her head and said, "I can't believe it. How can someone become the hero of 2 countries that he's never seen before and yet he's hated in his own? It makes no sense." Tsunade said, "I know, but that's the way it is. So are you ready for our next destination?" As she shifted her eyes toward the closet on the other side of the room. Shizune saw this and said, "Yes, but before we talk about this anymore, I need to use the restroom," as she got up and walked toward the restroom that was beside the closet. When she went inside, she closed the door and pulled out a paper tag and put it on the shower wall that was the back of the closet and then on the side with another tag. She then flushed the toilet, taking off her shirt, and walked out and walked toward the dresser on the other side of the closet and said, "I need another shirt. My other one stinks." As she opens a dresser drawer and slipped on a new shirt and moving at Junin speed, she slapped a 3rd tag on the outside of the closet by the dresser, and a cry of pain was heard inside the closet, and Tsunade got up and walked over and opened the closet and said, "Hello, Haku," as she looked at the girl who was passed out on the floor of the closet. When Haku woke up, she found herself tied to a chair and her body felt numb. She looked around and saw Shizune and Tsunade both sitting across from her. Tsunade asked, "So why have you been following us ever since we left Tazuna house?" Haku didn't say anything and Shizune sighed and said, "Please tell us, we don't want to hurt you." Haku remained silent and Tsunade said, "Very well. I can only assume you're an assassin waiting to kill Naruto, so I will just throw you overboard and let you drown," as she got up and moved toward the chair. Haku said, "Wait, Tsunade stopped and said, "Yes." Haku swallowed and said, "I wish to help Naruto-kun. He saved me and I wish to return the favor." Tsunade said, "Then what's with the sneaking around and spying on us?" Haku looked down and said, "I wanted to talk to him privately without anyone else listening." Shizune blinked and asked, "Why?" Haku said, "Look, I have my reasons why. Just let it go. Since you know I am here, can I just tag along with you until we meet him? If you want, you can bind my chakra or whatever the hell you want, as long as you let me speak to him for 10 minutes privately when we meet. That's all I ask." As she looked at both women, Tsunade asked, "Why is it you don't seem scared of what we could do to you?" Haku blinked and said, "It takes more than what you got to scare me. When I started my period, my master Zabuza-sama made me watch 3 women give birth. After that, he took me to a bar wearing nothing but a bra and panties, a string of condom packets for a necklace, and a single Senbon needle in my hair. Let's just say I walked out a virgin and never wanted to see another man ever again, while every person in the bar lost what makes them different from me. Being in your presence is nothing compared to that." Both Tsunade and Shizune blinked, and Tsunade said, "Fine, you get your 10 minutes, but betray us or hurt him." For added effect, she zoomed in onto Haku's face, and said, "I'll kill you." Haku said, "I wouldn't have it any other way." When Monday arrived, Danzo was in the council chamber fuming and said, "Look, how many times do I have to explain it to you all? Tsunade and Uzumaki are both gone from the village and not in the hospital room under protection or the Hokage office looking over the laws of Konoha to find a way to save the boy." Hiyashi asked, "And what proof do you have to back up your claims, Danzo?" "All we have is your words. We have checked the reports at the gates and no one has seen them leave. No one in the hospital saw the boy leave, even when you claimed before this that you had trusted people watching for him to leave. Are you saying the people you had watching are incompetent?" Danzo frowned and was about to say something when the door to the council chambers opened and a man about 5 feet 5 with brown hair and brown eyes with a pair of glasses on, wearing a pair of black pants and a brown shirt making him look like a civilian, entered the council chambers. Koharu asked, "What right do you have to enter the council chambers without our permission?" The man said, "Oh, excuse me, but I was ordered by Tsunade Senju, the Godime Hokage of Konoha, to immediately come to the council chambers upon my arrival. I am Surahishi, the financial accountant for the Fire Lord," making everyone freeze. Homaru said, "Wait, why are you here?" The man reached into his robes, making the shinobi in the room tense a moment, and he pulled out a scroll and said, "As I stated before, I am the financial accountant for the Fire Lord. The Godime Hokage requested that the Fire Lord send me to do the audit of all of the council assets to ensure that an unbiased review can be done to determine the claims that someone has been stealing from the village treasury. I have already sent my armed escort to seize all of your financial records from the bank in Konoha, as well as all financial books from the record office, as well as the financial registers of each of the businesses in Konoha." At this, Danzo, Koharu and Homura were all 3 sweating a little. Hiyashi said, "Yes, we were expecting an auditor to begin today, and I for one am glad to see the Godime Hokage has given us an unbiased auditor, since the Hyuga clan has already discovered when we were given the Uchiha accounts, being the closet's relatives in Konoha, that a large amount of assets were missing." Sura said, "I was already aware of the legal law pertaining to the Uchiha and the Senju assets, as well as the Hyuga clan taking possession of the account after Sasuke Uchiha defected from the village." A civilian council member said, "He did not defect, he was forced to leave by the Kyubi brat." Sura said, "That is your decision how you wish to claim, as I have no authority over anything but this audit to deal with in my investigation. However, as of the moment I was given my orders from the Fire Lord, the legal standpoint is that Uchiha Sasuke defected from the village, joining the Sound Village, and has been added to the bingo book as such as AA rank missing nin to be killed on sight due to the fact he has used an assassination jutsu on, at the time, a loyal Leaf shinobi, as well as joining a known enemy of the Leaf and the Sand Village." Koharu said, "This is an outrage. Who dared to mark Sasuke Uchiha as an A-rank missing nin to be killed on sight?" Sura pushed his glasses up and said, "That would be the Godime Case Cage," making several people flinch. Danzo said, I was not aware Suna had already elected a new cage. Sura said, from what I understand there is a great many things you are not aware of. Now, since I am a busy man, I am sure this council is as well. I will begin my audit and make this as painless as possible. I shall first start off with the people who have the most access to the funds in questions, and from my understanding that is the advisors, Kaharu, Homaru, and then after those two I will go with Danzo, then the clans, and lastly the civilian members of the council to determine if funds are actually missing and if so which parties are involved. Hiyashi asked, how long will it take for this investigation to be finished? Sura said, I shall be finished by the time the Fire Lord arrives next week. Danzo asked, how will you be able to do the entire council in that short of a period? Sura said, simple. I am but the chief investigator in this matter. My 200 assistants that came with me will be aiding me and reporting to me what they discovered so that I may turn the findings over to the Fire Lord, who will then report those findings to the Hokage. Now if you do not mind, would Kaharu and Homaru lead me to each of their land holdings and their financial records so I may begin? Kaharu and Homaru frowned but stood up and said, this meeting is adjourned for now, as they both left with Sura. Naruto blinked as the smoke cleared away as he held Hinata's hand as the two toads that they stood on top of transported them away from where they had been the last few days. Naruto jumped off the toad's head as did Hinata, and Naruto said, thanks for bringing us here, but are you sure this is where we are supposed to meet Tsunade Bakken? As he looked at the two toads. One croaked and said, yes, this is the agreed upon location. Naruto nods and said, alright, I guess you both can go back then, and thank you for everything. Both toads went up in smoke and Naruto looked around and asked, now what? Hinata pushed her fingers together and said, I think we should look around, but not stray too far away, to see if we can find them or find a good place to set up camp. Naruto glanced at Hinata and said, alright. That sounds like a good idea. Let's go. As he jumped into the trees and Hinata slowly began to follow. About an hour later, Naruto and Hinata were setting up camp near a river when a twig snapped and Naruto turned and blinked again and asked, Haku? As he laid eyes on said girl. Haku smiled and said, hello Naruto-kun. How are you doing? Naruto glanced around and asked, what are you doing here, Haku? A voice said, she came here to see you, Gaki. Causing Naruto to look and see Tsunade and Shizune walk out the woods a few steps behind Haku. Hinata stood up glancing at Haku and Naruto and then to Tsunade and said, it's good to see you again, Tsunade-sama. Tsunade raised an eyebrow and asked, what? No stutter. Hinata blushed and said, I have had a chance to get better. Naruto said, yeah, she got better after I learned she cared for me. And Haku frowned a moment and Shizune said, okay Haku, you can talk to him like we agreed in private. Causing everyone to first look at Shizune and then at Haku, who nods and walked over and said, can you follow me a moment, Naruto-kun? I would like to talk to you in private. As she walked toward the woods behind the camp, Naruto and Hinata first started to make. Naruto glanced around and began to follow her, and Hinata looked down, and after they were gone Tsunade put her hand on Hinata's shoulder and whispered, is everything alright? Hinata smiled a little and said, he knows how I feel and we agreed to go slow and see if he also has feelings besides friendship for me. Tsunade nods and Hinata said, this was sent to you through the toads from Jiraiya-sama, Tsunade-sama, as she pulled out several scrolls. Tsunade took them and opened them, and her eyes got wide a moment after checking them all and thought, you old pervert. This will help greatly. In the woods Haku stopped, and before Naruto knew it he was pressed up against a tree with Haku kissing him deeply on the lips. After a few seconds she pulled back looking at him, and Naruto quickly grabbed her and kissed her on the lips as well after slamming her against a tree. Once he broke the kiss he stepped back and said, I missed you, Haku. Haku smiled and held his hand and said, I missed you as well, Naruto-kun. How are you? as a pair of fox ears appeared on top of her head and a tail formed out of her tailbone. Naruto saw this, and a tail formed out of his tailbone and had a pair of fox ears appear on his head, and he asked, "So how did you get here?" Haku said, "Tsunade-sama came by and told Tazuna all about what happened to you and about her leaving, so after she left I began to follow her, but my stealth skills are not as good as yours are and she was able to detect me." Naruto smiled and said, "I am glad you're here. I need you right now with everything that has happened." Haku asked, "What is with that girl?" Naruto sighed as he leaned against the tree and said, She likes me and apparently has for a long time, but I ignored her feelings believing that no one cared for me." Haku saw the sad look on Naruto's face and reached her hand up and rubbed the whisker marks on his face, causing him to purr a little, and she asked, "Do you care for her?" Naruto said, "In a way. Yes. It's different than me and you. We both understood each other because of our past, and Hinata is like us in a way also. Most of her family thinks of her as weak and have treated her badly, not as bad as we have seen, but," as Haku placed a finger on his lip. She said, "I understand. You're confused about it all. The only love you know of is what you and I have." Naruto sighs as he falls down to his knees and sits on his butt with his knees against his chest and nods as he said, "Yeah. I felt Gigi was like a grandfather growing up, but then I learned that he lied to me about Kyuubi and I felt hurt. It made me start to doubt all the things he done for me growing up, like was he actually caring for me or was he just making sure I was loyal to him in the village so I wouldn't let Kyuubi out, which also made me question everyone else who had ever done something nice for me, and I forgot what it felt like to truly care for anyone including myself until I met you." Haku sat down beside him and put her arm over his shoulder and asked, "And do you think the others that are here are like that?" Naruto was silent for several minutes and said, "No. I trust them." Tsunade's voice came through the clearing and said, "That's good, brat, since we care for you as well, but I think you have something you need to tell us." As she pointed toward the ears and tails on each of them, and Naruto looked up, seeing Tsunade, who was looking at him with question, Shizune with a bit of womanly cuddly emotion, and a shell-shocked Hinata. Naruto sighed as he closed his eyes and thought, "Why me?" Naruto glanced at Haku, who nods her head slightly, and he said, "All right. I guess I can tell you all about what's going on with these," as he motioned toward his ears and tail. Tsunade said, "That would be good." Haku said, "It's a binding contract with Kyuubi," making everyone but Naruto blink. Shizune asked, "What do you mean?" Haku said, "You already know how I took a Chidori to the chest, right? Well, right before that Naruto had momentarily weakened his seal in anger, thinking that I had killed Sasuke during our fight, and Kyuubi chakra repaired the damage I had did to Naruto during our fight." Tsunade said, "I take it Naruto didn't know who you were at the time, since I remember reading that you were a masked enemy in Kakashi report." Haku nods and Naruto said, "Anyways, when I broke her mask before she took the Chidori, we talked and she confessed she wished we could have met somewhere else than we did so we could have been together more than we had," as he turned a little red with a blush. Haku said, "To put it simply, I am not a virgin any longer. When we first met, we recognized each other's pain and comforted each other and talked about our past, and we both wanted to be held by someone who could understand us." Naruto sighed and said, "Anyways, after she took the Chidori, she had passed out from the pain and Kakashi put her body on the ground and I ran to it, ignoring the mission and everything else, and a swirl of flames appeared between Naruto and Haku, making Tsunade, Hinata, and Shizune to jump back a little. When the flames died down, there was a girl about the same age as Haku with red hair and red eyes and a fox tail and a fox ears, and the girl said, 'You both take too damn long to talk, kits. To answer all questions I will be brief. You know who I am, so let's skip all that and get to the exact details.' Since he used my chakra to fight the girl here, I was able to talk to him briefly in his mind. I know that damn seal would normally kill me when the kid here dies, so I have no plans to go out like that, so I made a deal." Tsunade asked, What kind of deal, Kyubi? Kyubi said, relax, Senju, I have no plans to attack you or the others here. Hell, I did not have plans to attack Konoha had Madara not forced me to, but that's besides the point. The deal was simple. In exchange for saving the girl's life, I would receive a blood clone body like I am in now, with exactly one tail of power that I can use with the kid's permission between now and the time he dies. When he dies, I am freed with that clone body and one tail of chakra and allowed to go about my life as long as I never attack any of his precious people. Shizune asked, why exactly do they have fox tails and ears? Kyubi said, oh, those. That was a bloodline I gave both. It allows regeneration, which repairs damage at an incredible rate, as you seen from the lightning attack they both received, as well as make it where neither can die of old age, since the damage done to the human body that makes it age is instantly repaired. Once they hit the age of, I would saw 22, they won't ever look any older. They can still be killed, but it's much harder. Chakra boost, which it doesn't exactly increase the amount of chakra they have, it just makes it where their chakra is more potent than it used to be. Take the kit's use of Kujbunshin. The same amount of chakra that it took to make 100 Kujbunshin now can make 400. As his control increases, then the more potent his chakra will become, so eventually that same amount of chakra to make 100 could make 1000 or more. Nearly prehensile tail, which have scent markers in the end, so they can either find each other or anyone they want as long as they don't take a bath or a few days pass without touching the person, as well as a chakra network that is built into their own, and parabolic ears which make it where with training they can hear whispers up to about a mile away, though I know the kid hardly uses them. Hinata asked, are you both still together? As she pushed her fingers together. Naruto started to open his mouth and Kyubi said, they have to be. They're mates. Haku can't be with anyone else or she will feel incredible guilt, which will cause her to die from depression, where her spirit will just give up living, causing her body to just shut down. And the kid here is the same way. However, he can get more mates if he chooses to, but he has to have the approval of his other mates, so if you want to be with him, then you have to have both his and her approval, and then to make it fair to the kid so he won't be hurt with losing you as time passes by, I will give you the same bloodline that I gave them both. Tsunade asked, what do you get out of them living longer, Kyubi? Kyubi smirked and said, smart Senju. To answer your question, I am probably no stronger than a high chunin to low junin right now, so if all of you work together you could kill this body no problem, and then I would be forced back into the seal. What I get out of the kid having such a long life is several things. The first, company. I have lived a very long time and I will continue to live a very long time. As long as the kid here or his family live, I will have people I can talk to and make friends with. The second thing is the world will forget the great and terrible Kyubi no Kitsune. I will be able to, when I finally get my full freedom, to start a new life under a new name and not worry about power-hungry humans trying to control me or use me. The last thing I get is protection. Right now Madara can't control me because I am already under the kid's control. If I was freed right now while he still lives, then Madara can come for me and try to use me as a weapon again, like he did against your grandfather, as well as he did when he sent me to destroy Konoha. Tsunade narrowed her eyes and asked, Madara Uchiha, huh? How exactly is he still alive then? Kyubi shrugged and said, beats me human. I know it has something to do with his brother's eyes he took, but what I do not know. Tsunade seemed to think a moment and asked, what would happen to Haku if Naruto would die? Kyubi said, she would live long enough to take care of her kids if she had any, and then after they could take care of themselves she would fall into depression and die. When Kitsune mate, we mate for life and we do not like to live without our mates. Hinata bit her lip and asked, is this why you didn't want to agree to be with me when I asked? Because you needed to talk to her. As she shot a look at Haku. Naruto said, partially. What I told you was also true. I honestly had not thought about you in that way before, so I wanted to get to know you better, which I have been doing. As for you getting mad at Haku, then you have to realize something. I care for her. I know your family life was bad. Haku was nearly just as bad. Her mother had a bloodline in the land of mist and she hid it so she could live. Her own father, when he found out, murdered her mother, and Haku had to kill her own father as well as a mob he had gathered to save her own life. She then had to live on the streets, hated and despised just as I was. Haku understands me better than anyone else could because she knows the pain of being betrayed by those you trust and also the pain others can cause from hating you because you're different. I admit that I have some feeling for you, Hinata, but I don't know if they are love or friendship, but if you hate Haku then I can tell you the answer now. I can't live without her nor can she live without me. Even without the bond Kyuubi made for us I would still feel the same. Tsunade asked. What other effects would your bloodline have on a person? Like Hinata here. Kyuubi said, if you mean, will it affect her bloodline then no. With enough time though I can do this. As she snapped her finger and Naruto grabbed his stomach in pain and it started to sleet in the air. As everyone tensed and Naruto calmed down a few seconds later it quit sleeting and Haku said, you gave him my bloodline. Kyuubi said, yeah. Since I had to mess with your DNA structure while I was healing you and giving you my bloodline, I copied your original structure in case I messed up and had to fix it, and while I was bored inside the kit here I examined your DNA and figured out what was the part that gave you the ability to control ice. Now with training the kit can do it just like you do. Tsunade blinked and Hinata asked, and you could do that with my bloodline, give it to him. Kyuubi said, not just him, both of them. I won't make one member of the kit's pack stronger than another and I will do everything I can to make him the strongest in his pack. Tsunade said, so he could be your alpha. Kyuubi said, Exa, as she stopped herself. Tsunade smirked and said, I see. Naruto blinked and asked, you see what Bakken? Tsunade said, oh, I just figured out that the real reason the fox here is helping you is mostly what she has been saying, but there is another reason. Remember how she said she wouldn't have to be alone? Naruto nods and Tsunade said, and remember she said that Haku and you couldn't be without the other. Naruto nods again and Haku eyes looked at Kyuubi and Shizune said, you don't mean. Naruto asked, what are you all talking about? Tsunade said, think about it, Naruto. Since she gave you her bloodline, that means the rules that affect you affect her. She can't cheat on her mate or she would die from depression just as Haku would. She also can't live without her mate unless she had children, which I doubt, so that means she doesn't have one. She's alone and so she is making you like her so that way you can be her mate. Am I right, Kyuubi? She wants you to be stronger so she gives you Haku bloodline and she will make you stronger than she will because those who follow animal instincts like to have a strong male to protect them and Kyuubi done said she's using you to protect herself. Naruto looked at Kyuubi who was glaring at Tsunade and Haku said, it's true, isn't it? Kyuubi turned from looking at Tsunade and walked over and moved Haku hair away from her neck and said, remember this, what did I tell you it was? Haku said, a mate mark. Naruto blinked and said, but you told me that it was how you had to save her life and that I had to test it on you too. You tricked me. Kyuubi said, I'm a trickster at heart, Kit, it's what I do. Naruto asked, but why didn't you tell me the truth? Kyuubi sighed and said, I wanted to earn your approval and love. Earning your mark through trickery is okay, but actually having your heart is better. Especially after all the pain I caused you. Naruto rubbed his temples and said, I see. I need to think about it. Q nods and Tsunade asked, you said that your bloodline makes it where they won't age. What if Naruto wanted an older woman? Will it reverse her aging and can you activate dormant bloodlines? Q said, yeah, it would reverse your aging back to that of 22 and I might be able to activate your bloodline, but I would take time and might take some trial and errors which would be painful, but as long as I had the original DNA structure it won't be too hard. Naruto blinked and asked, you also Bakken? Tsunade said, no, Naruto, not me. At least not the way you're thinking. I see you as a little brother or a grandson, and that is all I will ever see you as. But I was thinking if I could give you my bloodline, that would make you stronger, so I was just asking. Besides, as you get older, you may find older women you like and want to know what effects all this has on them. Naruto said, I suppose you're right. I didn't think about it like that. Kyuubi said, not that I don't like the idea of giving the kid your bloodline, but to do so I would have to have a sample of your blood inside the kid's body, and to get it he would have to mark you. Tsunade smirked and said, Kyuubi, I am a medic nin, one who has looked into bloodline theft on several occasions, and I can tell you that getting my blood inside of him will not be a problem, as well as not getting that mark. Kyuubi said, whatever. Is that all you need of me at this time? I am tired and want to go back and rest. Tsunade said, I have no more questions. Kyuubi looked around and disappeared in a swirl of flames, and Tsunade said, well, that was all fun and good, but we got other things to worry about for now. Since Naruto and Hinata already got our camp set up, let's begin training. All of us. As she looked around and saw Shizune flinch. When Naruto and Hinata returned to camp, Naruto asked, so what will you be training us to do? Tsunade said, the first thing I need to do is get your chakra control, Naruto. That has and will always be your greatest weakness. For you, Hinata, we need to work on your stamina and chakra reserves. And Haku, I have no idea. Haku said, I am mostly the same as Hinata here, needing my reserves and stamina increased. Tsunade smiled and said, good, the first exercise you will be doing is water walking, on your hands. It's just like regular water walking, but using your hands instead of your feet. Too much and you blow off, not enough and you sink. Shizune, if you would. Shizune sighed as she flipped backwards and landed on the water on her hands and began to walk across the river and back several times before flipping upright. Naruto said, all right. As he put his hands together and said, Tajukage no Jutsu. As the entire clearing was covered in shadow clones and they all ran toward the river and started to try it different ways. Each of the women were gaping a little, and Tsunade asked, what are you doing, Naruto? Naruto turned and said, I learned while I was training with the toads that anything a Kagebunshin learns when dispelled would go back to the original. Apparently it's how my father did his paperwork as Hokage. As he gave a small glare at Tsunade. Tsunade blinked and said, so you know about your father now, huh? Naruto nods and Tsunade said, Jiraiya told me on the way back when you found me who you were, and he told me that your father wanted you to wait until you were a Junin to learn the truth to protect you from his enemies. I didn't like it, but I agreed since Akatsuki are after you. Naruto said, whatever. In a dead voice that sent chills down each of the women present because of how sad it was as Naruto himself began to do the exercise. Tsunade, after shaking off the feeling, said, well, what are you waiting for? Causing Hinata and Haku to also go and begin to try the exercise. Once they had began, Tsunade turned to Shizune and said, now while they work on that, you and I are going to go over the scrolls Jiraiya gave us and prepare for our trip tomorrow. As she thought, I am sorry for not telling you, Naruto, but I thought it was for your own good. Damn, why didn't I ever think about using Kagebunshin? As Naruto climbed out of the water, Naruto thought, at least this way I will get stronger, and when I get strong enough I can begin that sage training I was promised. Though I wish people would quit keeping secrets from me because I hate it. And who was my mother? What should I do about Haku, Hinata, and Kyuubi? Downstream a little from the real Naruto, Hinata was glaring at Haku, and Haku finally said as she stood on her hands trying to get comfortable with it before moving, if you want to talk about it then do so. Don't give me those hateful looks. Hinata bit her lip as she also stood on her hands trying to take her first hand step and said, why did he agree to be with you when not only were you the enemy but also a stranger, when I have known him years and he's never even thought of me? Haku looked at Hinata and said, it's because I saw him as him. Not what other people saw him as, but who he truly is. Tell me, who is he to you? Hinata said, he's strong, kind, he never gives up no matter how often he gets knocked down. Haku interrupted her and said, and that is why he chose me instead of you. You don't see him as him. You see him as everything you want to be. Yes, he's strong-willed but he's emotionally weak. He's kind but he also is vengeful. You think he never gives up and when it counts he doesn't, but when he's all alone, when no one is around, he wishes to give up to end the pain of loneliness. I see him as who he truly is, not who I want him to be or who I think he is. That is why he is with me. He doesn't want someone he has to support or someone to support him. He wants someone who will stand beside him not in just the good times but the bad as well. Hinata lost her concentration and fell into the water, and Haku flipped herself onto her feet and offered her hand to Hinata and said, "You know, if we fight over him, he is the one who will be hurting over it, which will hurt us both. If you want to be with him and truly care for him, then open your eyes and not just see his strength but also his weaknesses. Be there for him when he's lonely and be his pillar of strength when he needs it, since I heard he is yours. Do that and I will accept you to be with him also, because truthfully, he needs all the love he can get. My life was bad and I can guess so was yours, but at least we had some good times before the bad. We at least knew the love of a parent and what it's like to be friends, he never did." Hinata looked at Haku with water dripping down her face, and she looked at the outstretched hand and bit her lip before she reached out and took it as Haku pulled her up, but when Hinata got to her feet, Hinata got right in Haku's face, still holding that hand, and said, "If you hurt him I will kill you," as she held up her glowing hand ready to juke in Haku. Haku held up her other hand, having made one hand seals and Senbon needles formed in her hand, and said, "And the same to you." As they released each other, they both got back to work on the chakra control exercise. The clones of Naruto who were near enough to hear their talking thought, "Scary." A few hours later, when the girls were nearly out of chakra and Naruto was running out of clones, Tsunade said, "All right. That's enough for today on chakra control. I want you each to run 20 laps around this clearing," and then began to punch and kick a tree 100 times with each leg and arm. Naruto said, "All right, Bakken," as he began to run the laps, ignoring the groans from the two girls whose heart he held. It was dark by the time the girls had finished, and Naruto had already gathered fish for them all to eat. When they were eating, Naruto asked, "I have been wondering. Where exactly are we and why are we here?" Tsunade saw everyone but Shizune looking at her, and Tsunade said, "We are currently in the land once known as Whirlpool Country. It is now a part of Lightning Country." At this, Naruto and Hinata froze, and Hinata stuttered, "Lightning? But why here?" as she looked around scared. Tsunade bit her lip a moment and said, "We are going to meet the Lightning Lord tomorrow." Naruto asked in a neutral voice, "Why?" Tsunade said, because his name is Ichigo Uzumaki, brother to Kushina Uzumaki, your mother," making everyone including Shizune wide-eyed. Naruto stuttered out, I have an uncle." Tsunade said, "I only found out after we left Konoha though." Shizune said, "So that was what was in the scroll you refused to let me read, wasn't it?" Tsunade sighed and said, "Yes. Apparently the third Hokage had discovered who he was after the Cloud Indecent, but because of that he could not do anything without taking the chance of war between the two countries." Naruto asked, "So did he know about me?" Tsunade said, "He should now. I sent a message to him while we were traveling the past few days." Hinata asked, But what about me? You know about Cloud wanting my bloodline." Tsunade said, "Relax. I have already prepared for everything. Just wait until tomorrow and don't worry." "Okay." Hinata fidgeted but nods, and Naruto said, "Now how am I supposed to sleep?" as he slumped forward thanks to the medical jutsu Shizune had just used on him. As he slumped to the ground, Haku asked, "Why did you do that?" as she got ready to fight. Tsunade snickered and said, "Relax. The Gaki was already asking how was he going to sleep, and I know him enough to know he will worry himself all night until he's too tired to stay awake. Now he will get a good night's sleep before he meets his uncle." Hinata asked. But what if his uncle doesn't want him? Tsunade smiled sadly and said, that's not exactly the problem. I am more worried he wants him too much. Now get you some sleep. Shizune and I will take watch tonight. I will take first watch, Shizune will take second watch, so get some sleep. Making the other three women confused but followed orders. The next day Naruto was bouncing on his feet as they walked toward their destination. About noon they saw a huge castle and Naruto said, so my uncle lives here, as he looked at it as they approached. Tsunade said, yes. As she also looked at the castle and thought, I hope I made the right decision. As they got within a mile of the gate, 10 samurai walked toward them and one in red armor said, halt, state your name and reason for coming here. Tsunade said, I am Tsunade Senju, former Godime Hokage of Konoha, and these are my apprentices Hinata, Shizune, Haku, and Naruto. I sent a message to Lord Uzumaki requesting an audience concerning the fate of his sister's child. The one in red armor said, I see. Yes, we have been expecting you, but your letter only indicated 3 apprentices. Naruto said, that's because she did not know at the time about my fiancé Haku. I am Naruto Uzumaki. Before Tsunade had a chance to say anything and Haku got red face and thought, fiancé, well I guess that's alright considering as far as Kyuubi is concerned I am his wife, though he should have talked it over with me, but I accepted long ago anyways. Hinata thought sadly, fiancé. The red armor samurai looked at Naruto and said, you look nothing like the lord or his sister. Naruto said, truthfully I never knew what my mother looked like. I took all my looks after my father Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage of Konoha, making a few of the samurai flinch. The red armor samurai looked Naruto for several minutes and asked, which one do you hold, boy? Making Tsunade and Shizune wide-eyed, and Naruto asked, which what? The man said, don't play games, boy. I met the Yondaime and while I do admit you do look exactly like him, I also know if you are telling the truth then neither of your parents had whiskers, so that means you had to get them from somewhere, and since we have 2 of our own in this country I am more than aware of what that means, so I ask you again, which do you have, Jinchuriki? Making Naruto flinch. Naruto said, Kyuubi. The man said, very well, Tsunade Senju. You and your apprentices here will wait while I take the boy here to meet his lordship. I give you my word of honor, as long as the boy is who he claims to be, then no harm shall befall you or him. The rest of you stay here and guard these women and you will follow me. As he looked at Naruto. Naruto glanced at Tsunade, who closed her eyes and nods, and he began to walk forward but stopped and said, if anything happens to any of my precious people I will let Kyuubi free to kill you. Making a few flinch. Tsunade smirked to herself and thought, clever bluff, Naruto. You can release Kyuubi, but she's only in a human body. The man in red armor laughed and said, perhaps you are an Uzumaki after all. Come. As he led Naruto toward the castle. As they walked toward the castle, Naruto was fidgeting a little and the guard asked, why are you fidgeting? Naruto put his hands behind his head and looked at the sky to calm himself and said, I never knew who my parents were until I got banished from Konoha. I didn't even know I had any living relatives until yesterday, and I've been an orphan my entire life, so I have no idea how I should act or if he will even accept me as family. Who are you anyways? The man said, I am Captain Renji, captain of his lordship personal guard. Naruto nods and said, what's my uncle like? Renji said, you will have to see for yourself, we are here. As Renji opened a huge set of doors and Naruto looked inside.